Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast, Finding Your Flow. I'm so excited to have you here. So, I want to welcome you to our new season of this transformational podcast, and it's called My Intuition Made Me Do It. I'm your host, Jennifer Jane Young, and I'm here to ignite inspiration within you. I'm the author of Say Yes to Your Yes, How to Trust Your Gut and Take the Leap, and the visionary behind the School of Intuitive Leadership. I've dedicated my life to empowering individuals to trust their intuition and lead their lives from that powerful inner wisdom. Through my work as an international speaker and intuitive leadership advisor, I've witnessed the transformative power of following one's intuition firsthand with entrepreneurs and organizations around the world. This season, we're diving deep into the stories of people who dare to listen to their inner voice and take the leap. Join us as we unravel the mysteries of intuition, sharing captivating experiences that will reignite your belief in the incredible guidance within you. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. It's time to embrace the clarity and courage that comes from trusting your intuition. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired into action. Your dreams are waiting. Let's make them a reality together. So Andy, I am so excited to have you here. I was just before got on to record this, I was walking through the field and I was like, I was hearing your name, and your name sounds like a famous person. And I was just imagining myself, and I know you do stand up, so I was just imagining myself being like, ladies and gentlemen, Andy Fargo.
I love
So
that.
Andy, um, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so excited to introduce you to my community because you know how much I love you. I don't know that you know how much I love you. I really love you. Like, you're such an incredible human being, and the world needs the Andy magic. So I'm excited for people to get to know you on a more personal level today, as we share your story. And let's just dive in, I guess.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I love you too. Like you are such an inspiration. So I just want you to know it goes both ways.
Oh, thank you. It does go both ways. And, I think that's the beautiful thing about just the community that we have here and like the community that I'm in with you. There's just so much love going back and forth. I was sharing that NLV, the conference that we just went to. I was telling people were asking me how it went. I was like, there was so much love in that conference. Like, I can't even explain. It was so beautiful. So,
It's a good way to describe it.
yeah. Um, okay, so the this season is called My Intuition Made Me Do It. And every guest has a story to share. My intuition made me. So, can you complete that sentence? What did your intuition make you do that you want to share?
It's funny. I knew this was going to be the question. I knew this was what we were talking about. And yet when you shared that that would be the question with me, I had to think for a minute. I was like, man, what did my intuition make me do? Even though the answer is so obvious, everyone else has probably slapped me over the head going, come on, dude. But I would finish that sentence by saying, my intuition made me be myself.
Ooh. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. I have like full spinal chills hearing you say that. And I think there's so many people who are just dying to just be themselves, like just the simplicity and ease of just being ourselves. So, what inspired you to just be yourself? Like, what made you do that?
So there was one pivotal moment, which I'll share in a moment, but it really was just this constant feeling of trying so hard to be the right person, and all of that trying just made me less and less fulfilled. And I think that when your balance of how hard you try with your level of fulfillment is that desperately far off, that's where the frustration lies. And I finally got to a point where I was so fed up and frustrated for myself. I was a week away from turning 40, and I remember being in the dining room of my house. I was married at the time, and what would be my future ex-wife said to me, if you don't tell me exactly what you want for your 40th birthday, I'm just going to do something small here and have, like, her sister over for dinner or whatever. And I just remember thinking, I want to be with someone who knows what I want. And And not to fully put it on her being this evil person, but I wasn't fully bringing myself to a relationship.
Mm.
I wasn't demanding the best respect for myself, but that theme was repeated in work, in my lack of having good friendship relationships, and the lack of having solid relationships with the rest of my family, because I was trying to show up differently for everybody instead of just being me. And I knew in that moment that everything in my life was going to change in the next year. And I didn't know how, I just knew I had to make changes. And over the next 6 months, I ended up coming out of the closet, getting divorced, relocating across town because that's all that, the whole package that comes with divorce. Eventually lost my job that I had in corporate. And that all led to me starting my career as a motivational speaker and coach, which is what I've honestly always wanted to do, but I never saw how it could happen until I started just being myself.
Okay, I want to unpack a little piece that you just talked about there, because I remember when you told me this story when we were in Montana, and it pinched my heart again. Like I felt it in my body. And it's such a beautiful part of the story because, like, my next question is like, what is the most important lesson that you learned from following your intuition on this? Um, I think it's important to highlight that sometimes when we follow our intuition, actually, most of the time when we follow our intuition and we just own who we are, like you did, things fall away in our life, right? And in that moment when you lost your job, I remember you sharing that, like, essentially you lost your, like, they fired you after coming out of the closet, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And I imagine it must have felt, did it feel devastating in the moment? Did you understand in the moment that, like, oh, life is just clearing the path for me now that I'm just showing up? Like, this is no longer in alignment with the true version of Andy.
And that's a great question because looking back, I don't know how clearly I saw it in that way in the moment, but I definitely know that I didn't feel like it was a great loss. I remember having the feeling of, this wasn't really the place for me anyway. So I'm glad to have that tie broken. And I remember speaking with a friend of mine's husband who was a lawyer, and he took a look at what I had going on. He's like, this could be pursued, and this doesn't make sense. You can fight this if you want. And I just remember thinking, it's not worth fighting for. It's not where I want to be. And it took me some time to kind of regroup and refocus on what made sense for where to go. But looking
Yeah.
back, it wasn't a devastating, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I don't know where to go. It was more of an affirmation that, yeah, that's not the place for me to stay.
I love that. So this is what I want people to remember about this particular piece of the story is it was an affirmation of where you needed to be and where you didn't need to be. Because I think um, one of the things that really stops people from saying yes to their yes, saying yes to their yes. I'm wearing my yes
I
now. I'm
love
like,
that.
no more, no more, no, not saying yes to my yes. Is the fear of, like, oh, what is going to happen? Like the fear of, like, if I say yes to my yes, will my relationship break down? Will I, like, all of those thoughts? And I think we often, the fear of what's going to happen is worse than what actually happens. And when it's aligned, like you said, there's almost like this peacefulness of the thing, like with the things that fall away, right?
And I think the thing that had been frustrating for me was I couldn't define my yes. So it was hard to say yes to my yes when I didn't know what that was and I couldn't picture it. But in that moment, what was probably most important was to say no to my no. Like to
Mm,
realize I need to get rid of the things that aren't for me so that I have the ability and the space to let the things that are right for me in.
that is probably one of the easiest things that people can do to get started. Just say no to the things that don't feel good anymore.
Hmm.
So when you started to get that intuitive nudge that, like, uh-oh, Andy's not being himself.
Hmm.
Something's not aligned here. And then it gets clearer and clearer as we keep listening to it. Like, the first iteration was probably like, oh, I'm not being myself authentically in all areas of my life. And then the clarity, like, oh, I need to come out of the closet. Oh, I need to get divorced. And then all of the next steps kind of unravel. But how did it initially feel, that intuitive nudge?
Well, I will tell you, I am a slow learner. And I
Hmm.
didn't understand anything about intuition while all of this was going on. So I didn't have the gift of a Jennifer Young in my life where it's like, oh my gosh, I can understand intuition and follow it, and I'm gonna feel that, and I'm just gonna lean into it. So it was scary. It was. I think that the thing that made the most difference was there was a point somewhere along this process where I started to look back along the decisions in my life, and I realized all of those times where there was intuition that I ignored made my life harder. And every time I didn't follow my gut, then I got into a situation. It's like, man, why am I here? When I said yes to the wrong thing or didn't say no to the things I should have said no to, even though I had that intuitive feeling inside that I didn't understand, those were what created the biggest headaches in my life and the biggest challenges. Now, all of that journey is what has gotten me to where I am now. So I'm happy to have had all of those experiences, even the painful ones, because I wouldn't be able to share the stories I did if I didn't go through that. But
Right.
at first, when this was first happening, I didn't understand intuition. So it was very much like, I guess this is where I need to go. And there was a sense of surrendering and just being in the place of, I need to be able to just see what's there for me and see where this goes and trust the process.
Mm. So it was kind of like moments that felt hard and then moments that felt more easeful. That was kind of the feeling of it.
Yes. And I guess I would say the moments sometimes were hard because I was doing things in a different way. It's like anytime anyone gets a new job or learns a new skill or hobby, no matter how bad you want to do it, learning the muscle memory and figuring out how to do it is tricky and painful, but you stick with it because you're like, man, I want to weave that basket. It's like I can't get them lined up right, but I know what I want out of the product, so I got to stick with it. So there is that discomfort
Mm.
knowing that the other way didn't work. The results have been so much better and easy to just lean into and say, wow, this is actually life is so much easier when you're just doing what feels right.
I think also sometimes we have this idea that like it's so self-indulging to follow our intuition, like that there's this perfectly aligned path for us. Like, and once we like really own that idea that like actually no, there is a really easy path for us and one that's going to bring us so much joy and so much abundance, um, it just kind of unlocks flow after. So I think it's really important because I've been talking with a lot of people lately, like clients and just people in the community, and that that statement keeps coming up of like it feels so self-indulgent to do the thing that's going to make me feel good. And
Right.
it's like, what is wrong? And I taught a yoga class this morning, and one of the women after, she was like, "Oh, this was so good." And I was like, "Yeah, doesn't it feel good to feel good? Because we're not
Hmm.
used to making choices that make us feel good."
Exactly. And there's something tied to our enjoyment and our guilt, where if it's not hard, it's harder to feel like we deserve it. And so if we're doing the thing that's easy and it's enjoyable, there's almost this shame or guilt tied to you didn't have to work very hard for that, so you don't deserve it. And
Yeah.
that's something that we need to get past because why should it have to be so much work? Why should we have to fight and work so hard when there's all these other options that are easy and simple and enjoyable? And we're going to be better at those things. Like I'm going to be better
Yeah.
at things that I love and enjoy doing. So why shouldn't I lean into those?
Oh my God, 100%. So let's go to the other side of the coin. This is always a little scary question, and I often think about it for myself of like, what if? And it's actually really when I think about this question, it actually feels quite scary. But it's important to think about even as we continue to move down this journey. What do you think your life or business would look like now if you had not said yes to your yes, if you had not trusted your gut and made these changes? Who would Andy be today? What would Andy's life look like today?
That's a question I have thought of or thought through several times because it's something that a couple of my close friends and I have had discussions about. Man, what if nothing ever changed? And everything would be different. for myself, I wouldn't have a business. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing now because the place that I was in, I couldn't share who I was. I didn't have the courage or confidence to stand up and say, this is why we need to be the way we are. This is a good way to live. Whatever the statement is, I didn't have the confidence in myself to say it on my own behalf, let alone tell other people that that's a good way to live. So I wouldn't even have a business. I wouldn't have a message out there. There would be no awkward to own because I would still be cowering in a corner. I would have and the thing is, you look at it on the personal side, I wouldn't be able to be as honest with my kids and guide them in a way that I've never been able to guide them because I would still be just trying to get by. And as hard as that was, I mean, that's been the hardest piece of where I was that it was a change in our family dynamic with divorce and separation and all of those things that happen. But I can actually show up as a better father by being myself outside of a situation where I'm pretending to be somebody else.
Mm,
So just every aspect of my life, I it's sad to me to think about had I stayed on that track, how I would have just been checking the boxes, doing the safe things, and everything would look fine on paper, but there really wouldn't be joy in my
right.
life same way.
I think from what I've learned on this journey and just what I've seen working with people is that when people are not trusting their gut and following what feels right to them, they're essentially in survival mode, like you're talking about, right? Just getting by. And we don't realize it. We don't realize what's happening in our nervous system. It's something I work a lot on with people is like, we need to get the nervous system in a really calm place where it's not in survival anymore so that you can have that clarity and access to your intuition and take that next step. But the more you keep moving forward with something that doesn't feel it, like I almost imagine it of like imagine you're, I don't know, you're pinching yourself, like, well, that doesn't feel good, but then you keep pinching yourself harder and harder and harder. Like your nervous system is going to start to be like, okay, this is not good. And
Right.
that's for me, my experience has been not trusting my gut, not following it has been excruciatingly painful. Like when I'm not saying yes to my yes, I fall into suffering because I'm out of alignment and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I one thing that I have realized, everyone's motivated by different things, but a lot of us are very fear motivated. And one thing that I have found is that we will stay in the same place and not make a change in our lives until we become more afraid of what our life is like without making the change than we are of actually making the change. And
Yeah,
that's the space that I was in, where I remember thinking I could live like this the rest of my life, and that would be, mundane, fine, acceptable. I would survive, but that's not how I want to live the rest of my life. And
right.
for for me, it was just, man, this isn't where I wanted to be at this time in my life. I thought that I would be content and happy and excited for things on the calendar, and those things weren't happening because even the things that should be exciting on the calendar weren't when you can't be yourself. So,
Right, right, right.
Let's just take a moment to pause, breathe, and soak in the goodness of today's story. I hope it's starting to inspire you to say yes to your yes, trust your gut, and take your next leap forward. If so, I have something amazing to support you as you take your next leap. I'm inviting you to join my 12-week journey to intuitive mastery called Unlock Your Inner Wisdom so that you can start living the life you're yearning for right now. I'm also throwing in 2 bonuses for you: a digital copy of my book, Say Yes to Your Yes, How to Trust Your Gut and Take the Leap, and a 1-month complimentary access to my flow experience to start creating flow from the inside out. Because when life flows through you, abundance flows to you. Head over to jenniferjaneyoung.com/sayyes to get all of your goodies.
So I want to talk a little bit about like the uh in between process, right? From the moment you get the intuitive nudge, you say yes, then there's that whole transition period, before you get back to this like kind of stable place. And I think that is the period that people are the most scared of. Like the mess, there's a book out there called The Messy Middle. It's like the messy middle
Right.
as you're moving through it. So you talked a little bit about it, but like, what would you say that messy middle felt like for you? Like, was it scary? Was it, did you have moments where you're like, oh my God, like, what did I do? Like, how did that look and feel for you?
I definitely did. As you were starting to ask that question, that's the thing that was coming to my head was, oh my God, what did I do? Because I had those thoughts so many times where it was like, why did I make this change? What was it worth it? Because the place that I was in that messy middle space that you talk about, the thing that happens is we tend to make our life change, or we follow this intuition and then we expect that instant result. And we say, hey, I did the thing, where's my prize? And the
Right, right,
prize
right.
doesn't show up. And so then we feel betrayed. We second guess our intuition. We second guess the choices we made. And yet we forget that life takes some time to catch up. And I remember having so many moments where I talk about being at rock bottom and how it wasn't just that one day. Like it was night after night, falling asleep, morning after morning, waking up over and over again until I finally realized I had some power to make a change and move my
Mm,
direction I want. But that time where it was just, man, am I going to cry myself to sleep, or am I going to wake up ignoring the alarm and putting my head under the cover for another day? And the thing that changed for me was that I learned to measure the distance between my hard times and see the distance between the hard times as growth. So it might have been, you know what? I didn't cry for 2 hours today. And yesterday I only made it 45 minutes. So that was growth. And maybe tomorrow I'll make it 2 hours and 5 minutes. Like whatever it is, I would realize, because then I could realize that once I have that breakdown, it's not that I'm back at square one and I'm never moving forward. It's that, well, maybe I have a good 4 hours ahead of me, or 4 days, or maybe it's gets to a point where, man, you know what? I haven't had a really crappy day for 4 weeks.
mm,
So I can sit in this bad headspace right now and know that once I'm through this episode, maybe I have 5 weeks next time. And that
mm.
gave me so much hope because I could see that I was actually getting better.
Yeah. I love how you calculated that. That's such a good way to like be like, okay, things are getting better. You're kind of tracking the progress. And also, I think, I think we were talking about this in Montana together. Our friend Wade now, you guys met.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about like the face in the sofa moments, and I was having a really hard day one day and I was feeling so crappy about myself because I had felt crappy all day. And he's like, and? Like it's just a face in the sofa moment. You just lie on your face until you're done lying on your face, and then
Hmm.
you go back to the next thing, and it's okay because I think, from what I'm hearing you say, and it actually reminds me of my own journey, is that there is grief that happens when you say yes to your yes, right? You have to grieve the person that you've been pretending to be. You have to sometimes grieve certain people. You have to grieve letting go of certain habits, certain ways of thinking, certain comfort zones, like the baby blankets that we use in life, all kinds of things.
Right.
Um, so there's definitely grief in this process, and there is always a breakthrough after. And I think that you're such a beautiful example of like someone who experienced such a nice breakthrough because it literally hurts my heart to think of like not having the Andy Vargo that I know in
Mm.
this world if you had not said yes to your yes and did what was right for you.
Well, that means so much. Thank you. It's true. I love the concept like that Wade mentions about, your face in the couch. Because
Yeah.
one of the things that I am a huge fan of, I mean, I am big on staying positive and being focused on reframing how you're thinking, but also being realistic and saying, hey, just because I'm focusing on positive stuff doesn't mean I don't have those days where my face is in the couch for 3 days in a row still. Like this isn't,
Right.
oh man, I'm cured and I found the secret sauce and I never have that bad day. But now
Yeah.
I can see it as part of the process. And now when I see
Yeah.
it as part of the process, I look at it like I call it, I'm sitting on the couch. My days, my face in the couch days, I call cocooning because I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm cocooning, and pretty soon I'm gonna be a beautiful butterfly, and I can't wait to see how big my wings are and watch out world. Because that's what the process with
Right?
them. They go into that cocoon and they totally break
Yeah.
down to mush and nothing recognizable. So now
Yeah.
I'm just like, yes, I'm leveling up.
I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness, right? Because the butterfly, when it goes into mush, like complete liquid, it literally is like, well, things are over. Like I'm gonna die now because it's just mush. And that's how we feel like when we're having those cocooning, or I like to call them fetal position moments.
Right.
But the more you embrace them and just let yourself be in them,
Hmm.
um, yeah, the more you then have, like you said, that big, beautiful, expansive butterfly moment. And it's not always like stuff happening externally outside of yourself, but it's like this inner expansion, this feeling
Yeah.
of like peace and freedom and deep contentment in the moment with yourself. And I think that that is like the most beautiful gift for sure.
Exactly. And I think it's so important that everyone out there knows that we're all having these days. Like you see me making jokes and posting funny videos and then getting on stage and doing inspirational talks. And then it's
Yeah.
like, well, that guy's going to go have his fetal moment in about 10 minutes after he crashes. Or, we see Jennifer with her say yes to your yes, and she's on the couch going, I'm going to say yes to my
Yeah.
yes. I'm going to say yes to my yes. But we need to know that all of these people, no matter how successful or how happy or perfect we think their lives are, have these human situations and emotions.
Oh, totally. I remember listening to Oprah talk one time, and like Oprah, she's like powerhouse out in the world. You're like, she doesn't have bad days. And she was
Hmm.
talking about a moment in her career when like she was super successful, things were going great. And I don't know for how long, but essentially she like for I don't know how long she was like waking up every day and just like sobbing in her bed. I can't remember what was going on in the moment, but yeah, like we're human. It's just part of the experience. So
Yeah.
we have to embrace both. And like people, you have got to go follow Andy on social media. Your reels are so funny. Oh my goodness. I love them so much. The last one you shared about going down to look at the whale was
Oh, yes.
so hilarious, but it was, and there's so many like beautiful life lessons in your reels. Like they're hilarious. And I love, so this is going to bring us, okay, into the next part of my question, which is perfect because I'm like, I want people to know like who is Andy now after all of this change, after all of this transformation. Who is Andy now? Like get people to get to know you. Like I know you and there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to share, but just tell the world like who you are, what you do in your personal life, what you do in your work. Who is awkward Andy right now?
Sure. So it's funny the way you asked that because over the last several years, I've really developed, my life is so centered around my brand of Own Your Awkward. And as I started to develop that, I remember people would introduce me and they'd be like, here's my friend Andy. He's an author and he's a speaker and he does motivational speaking and he's a life coach and he's a comedian. And they would ramble all these things. And I would get a little embarrassed because I'm like, ah. So, and, and even when I look at like my reels, I try to warn people, I'm like, you're going to get a little bit of everything. You're going to see something funny, sarcastic, smart ass, and then super inspirational, and sometimes a mix of all of them. And I've even struggled sometimes with social media. They say you got to go all one way and be consistent. And I'm like, I can't be that. Like, I
Right.
don't fit into any particular aisle in the supermarket. It's just I'm on all the aisles and I've got a little different slice of style in each one because I just think that's part of the package. Like I believe in not taking ourselves too seriously, but also seeing the importance in ourselves and in what we can do for the world and just stop faking who you are. Because I mean, I did that for years, and if I firmly believe if we're spending 30% of our energy trying to fit into a certain mold, then we only have 70% left to live a good life, to help others, whatever your motivation is, to be successful, to be happy, to help your kids, to get that thing that you want to get, whatever it is, you really want to only put in 70% effort. So
Right. You
yeah,
deserve
so
the
yeah.
100%.
But outside of that, any weekend I might be hiking, karaokeing, doing some writing or reading or just hanging out with friends either at a coffee shop or a happy hour. I'm all over the place. I like to say I just have so many interests, but not necessarily mastered too many of them.
Well, I think you've mastered a lot. And I remember again when we were on Montana, like I didn't really know about your comedy side, your like stand-up side. And I was just really excited for your inspirational talk at the conference, And I remember after the conference, I think we went to the restaurant and you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing stand-up tonight across the street." And I was like, "What? Oh my God, that's amazing. I get like the inspirational guy and then the guy that's gonna make me laugh. Like, what a great package."
Yeah, and
So
it's funny because when I started doing stand up, initially I started that just to practice being comfortable on stage in a different way, knowing that I was developing my speaking career. And my stand up was way over here, irreverent, and I got some good laughs, but not inspirational. And then my inspirational, motivational talks were deep and motivating and tell these hard stories but didn't have much comedy in them, and I've really worked over the last 8 years to bring them together so that when I do speak I can throw the comedy into it, and every once in a while maybe put
yeah.
something a little inspiring in my comedy. But even that I had a hard time molding together because I still was in that mindset of, no, I've got to be in this lane here and then this lane here. And it's not an easy thing to start pulling your whole self together, because even when you do that, you revert to your old habits and ideas, and so you've got to remind yourself, no, that's okay.
Yeah. And like it's such magic together because really, if you think about it, the work that you're doing to really encourage people to step into who they are, which is a very scary, daunting process, the comedy, the humor just like lightens it up. It makes the process a lot more fun. And I was reading a book a while back, and she was encouraging people to um, get really creative in your brainstorming. Like match two things together that you would love to blend, but the outside world doesn't think it makes sense.
Mhm.
And so this, I think, is such a perfect example of that. And it makes that special blend of who Andy is. And like I remember I did it, because I was initially a yoga therapist, and then I went into business and leadership work. And now I'm a yoga therapist who teaches business and leadership, and I
Mhm.
blended it all together. And actually, it amplified what I'm teaching. It deepened the work that I'm doing. And I think that's exactly what is happening with you. And that's the beauty of all this. When we just own who we are, we offer to the world this unique version of our magic that doesn't exist anywhere else because no one else can be Andy out in the world. Right.
Right. And the thing that I'll add to that too is that most of the times everyone around us sees it and values it, even though we can't quite put the pieces together. I've had
Right.
people for the last several years telling me, lean into the comedy, both as a speaker and a life coach. And I've struggled in the past with, well, if I'm seen as a comedian, then I'm not going to be seen as credible. So I've really tried to hide that and be like, no, I'm serious over here. This is my business. I'm doing this. And they're like, but that's what makes you different and unique. And I'm like, I'm not ready to own that word.
Right.
But last summer I went through an exercise with Ruben Swartz, who's one of the NLVers, and the challenge was to interview past clients. And I had 3 different coaching clients who all said, unsolicited, I said, well, is there anything else that I should add in here that I should know? And all 3 of them said, the fact that you were a comedian was what made me more drawn to you and made the process less daunting, less intimidating, and more fun, so that I could actually go through this process with a lot less stress. And I was like,
Mm.
listen to your friends. Everybody's been telling me this for years. And so finally I went and updated my website, and the first line is, I'm a comedian. I tried not to lean into that, but I can't hide who I am.
Right.
This is how I approach, helping and working with people. So
I love it, Andy. I love it. You're such a special human being. So, not everyone is entrepreneurs that is coming on the series, but you are, and you have such a gift to offer the world. So I would love to ask you if someone really feels connected to what you spoke about today and would love support in owning their awkward, whether they're an individual or I'd actually love for you to just talk a little bit about how you do your work and who you support through your work. What are the different ways in which you can help people to own their awkward?
sure, I appreciate that. I have many different ways that I work with people. The easiest, most basic way is give me a follow and just get some fun entertainment and inspirational ideas out of giving me a follow or a like online, that's super helpful. The next level, I've got books out there that are focused on helping you get through life change. My most recent book is Own Your Awkward Life Changes, and it's a process to take the emotion out of change. Those are some simple, easy ways to support without, signing up for a full life coaching program or anything like that. But then I do workshops to help people get on stage and speak and share their special message. I also do one-on-one life coaching, primarily focused on people who want to make some sort of change in their life. And I tend to work with a lot of entrepreneurs or people who are going through a major change, like a relocation or a relationship change, to help take the emotion out of it to make the change go the way you want. So change is going to enter our lives in so many different ways, but no matter what, we still have control of the action we're taking. That's what I help people do. And then on the corporate or conference level, I do keynotes, I do corporate entertainment. I can do workshops with businesses to help your team learn how to tell either their personal message or your brand or your company's message better. And those I travel anywhere for. Coaching I can do either in person locally in the Northwest or online. It's we have a pretty broad audience. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. So many beautiful ways to just enjoy your magic that then allows someone else to own their magic. So it's so good. And I'm so honored. You are the first guest on this season's series. My intuition made me do it. And it's such an honor to kick it off with you. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to share in the show notes just a link to your website and all of the places where people can go follow you and watch those awesome reels. They're so good. They will brighten up your day. So thank you, my friend, for being here with us.
Thank you so very much. And I didn't realize my intuition made me do it until you made me look back and realize part of the journey that I've been on. So thank you so very much. I just appreciate everything you do.
Thanks, my friend.
Okay, let's just take a moment to take in that story. My wish is that it inspires you into the aligned action that you are really ready for. You also don't have to do this alone. Just like my guests have shared about all the incredible people that have supported them along their journey, we are here for you too. If you're ready to up-level your personal leadership, take big leaps in your life, or take that next leap on your entrepreneurial journey, join us at the School of Intuitive Leadership or in the Flow Experience so that you can experience more ease, flow, joy, abundance, and live in your full brilliance and wake up each day to the life that you really want. Find out more at jenniferjaneyoung.com or at theschoolofintuitiveleadership.com. And participate in this movement with us by sharing an episode that deeply inspired you and leaving us a review. I can't wait to see you on the next episode.